Two guys either side of 50 with one dream to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Andy Walker, welcome back. It is episode 16 of the Missing Links Golf Show. They said, I think I've said this before, but they said we'd never make it. They may yet turn out to be right. But for now, 16 episodes in, going strong. And I don't care what anyone else thinks, but I'm thoroughly enjoying this adventure. So welcome to episode 16.
Thank you, Mr. Hinks. Yes, I'm very much enjoying this journey as well. And look, it's just one foot in front of the other, isn't it? Or as it would be, one episode after another. So
as it may be, yes.
Look, and after last week chatting to my good mate Scotty Fisher, what a great episode and great chat that was. I really enjoyed catching up with Scotty. We don't catch up as often as what we should, as it is with a lot of great mates. But yeah, what a great chat that was.
That was so good. I was listening. We were chatting before. I was listening to that episode this evening as I was strolling down to the adjunct of the Missing Links Golf Show High Performance Centre Central West, also known as the Short Game Practice Area, and then on the way back. And I loved it. Like, honestly, that was such a good episode. I know we'll get into a few reflections on it in just a moment, but one of the things that stands out for me, Andy Walker, is that one of the reasons that we started this podcast was, you know, as we've talked about, that opportunity in middle age to kind of have a crack at some more sporting glory, or if not glory, at least some purpose.
Yep.
But you know what that episode did, I think, is it was another good thing that we as middle-aged blokes in Australia in particular don't do enough. And that's just have a good old chat with some old mates, like have a reason to reconnect.
Yeah, I agree.
And I feel like that episode did that, certainly for you two as mates. And you know, obviously I know Scotty reasonably well also, but if nothing else, I think that's good motivation to say to people, you know what, haven't spoken to one of your mates in a while, pick up the phone.
Yeah. And that's it. And I'm being a little bit old school, being in my middle age now. I love a conversation. I'm not into, I mean, I do text and, you know, I'm obviously we're on Messenger a lot. However, there's nothing that replaces actually picking up the phone and having a chat like that.
Totally.
That to me.
I mean, you're not a big TikToker, Andy Walker, are you? You're not a Snapchatter.
Don't even have a TikTok or Snapchat account, to be honest with you. At one point, I did sign up to Twitter.
And it lived up to its name.
It's X. Yeah, exactly. It's now X.
Yeah.
And just couldn't do it. Like, you know, even Instagram to a certain extent. I do have an Instagram account, but I don't really use it that much. And Facebook, well, I used to use Facebook a little bit, but it just seems to be now just advertising just at your, you know, in your face all the time. Yeah. So I'm even pulling a little bit back from Facebook and just reconnecting on a one-to-one basis, which I'm finding to be a bit of a breath of fresh air rather than everything being online.
Yeah, and I mean, wow, this is a super tangent that we're off on so early in the show. But there's also something to be said for how curated people's lives are on social media, rather than you know, you pick up the phone, you get the full story. You don't get the advertising brochure, which for a lot of people is what it is.
Well, at the end of the day, a lot of the influencers as well, it's all rented lifestyle. Like, it's not actually real.
Sure. What?
Shock horror. I know.
I can't believe you'd say such a thing.
But and that's the great thing about sort of, you know, what we're doing is you know, we're just on here having a chat each week. Like we've got we're on Zoom. We've got the Zoom video recording, so we can sort of see each other's facial expressions. We're on the mics, but at the end of the day, and I think I've covered it a few times, it's just the chats that we've always had that we're now recording.
Yeah, and if you're wondering, it's not edited. So whatever we talk about, that's what goes on the podcast. There is an argument to say that maybe we should do some editing at times, but you know what? I don't think so, because it's real, it's authentic, it's just a conversation. There's no rehearsing, there is no
No,
script.
no.
There's a few
And
talking points, sure, but
yeah,
it's a chat between two blokes about golf
yeah. And
and,
look,
and stuff.
we don't necessarily articulate things, absolutely perfectly all the
Speak
time.
for
In fact,
yourself, Andy Walker.
in fact, there's probably quite a number of times that we don't.
There'll be a
It hasn't
bloopers reel at some point.
exactly. But I'm sure that everyone understands what we're talking about. It's like having a chat down the pub,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and again, during those conversations, you don't necessarily always articulate yourself that well, but especially after a couple of schooners. But
Mm.
yeah,
That's the one
it's
thing we don't do in the Missing Links Golf
no,
Show,
we
though.
don't, we
Yeah,
don't, we don't.
yeah. It's a
Um,
slippery
but
slope.
but look, yeah, it's just being authentic, it's being real, it's interesting. We've had a couple of comments about being vulnerable and how we're prepared to talk about
That's true.
not just the good things, but some of our weak points and some of those areas that we're not necessarily doing that well. And look, I think that's part of it. It's being authentic and being real.
It is. I mean, the flip side to that is that if we were to not talk about the areas that we had weaknesses in and the areas that we were, below par in or any of those sorts of things, it could potentially be a very short show. Uh,
That is very true. That is very true.
so I think that actually forms a large part of the content.
Mm,
But no, in all seriousness, like that's what it's about because our attempt in this show is to kind of share our version of the journey that pretty
mm.
much every weekend golfer goes through.
Yep.
And to talk about things that I would imagine are extremely relatable to pretty much everyone that picks up a golf club in a club comp on a weekly basis, or even
Mm.
socially or in social clubs or any of the many other ways that people enjoy the game.
Yep,
Um,
sure.
and our experience is no different to others, but hopefully by sharing it, we can make people feel like they're the same as every other guy, and regardless of what your handicap level is, I think you still think about a lot of the same stuff. But also, what we're trying to do to improve, maybe give some ideas and some suggestions, and hopefully even some inspiration for people to give it a go themselves.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And while, I think every person's journey is unique, there's also a lot of similarities
For
there. And
sure,
and
for sure.
we all have the same emotions towards the game. And we all have challenges. There might be different challenges, like, we were talking just before we jumped on the podcast, which I'm sure we'll cover. My driving at the moment from a strokes
Mm,
game perspective is just appalling.
mm, mm,
And you have had this breakthrough with your putting, which again I'm sure we'll get to. So we're
mm.
experiencing sort of different things at opposite ends of the golf equation, but it's still we're still going through the same things and experiencing similar emotions towards the game.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think 8.5 minutes in, we've come up with a new way of starting the show. We generally start with listener feedback, and we know that leads to quite often about a 15-minute intro before we get to the actual discussion topics.
Yep.
What we've managed to now do is introduce the best part of 10 minutes of just a general intro before we even get to the intro, before we
Excellent.
get to the actual
Excellent.
show. So great work, Andy Walker. I think we now have a new segment called the Rambling Musings of the Missing Links Golf Show,
Look,
which I'm a big fan of.
I reckon we can get to 3 hours for each show.
Oh, we could. We won't, but we could. We might. I'll tell you what. We might do that. We might do that. I was thinking Christmas special, but that's a long way off. We might
Mm,
do the Easter special because
okay.
there's actually at the right time. It's probably not tonight, but there will be an Easter announcement. And I think I can see a 3 hour live podcast
Mm.
on the
Or,
Easter
or
weekend.
or maybe we should just go for an all day event.
We might do a live a live transmit of the entire Macquarie Cup. It's a 2 day event, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I reckon people will be tuning out fairly quickly
Do you
if we
think?
do that.
Do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, I
Do you think?
reckon.
Anyway, we won't do that. But I digress somewhat. listener feedback, Andy Walker. There has been
Yes.
a little bit. I've received a little bit. I don't know if you have again this week, but your listener
No.
feedback from 2 weeks ago was just nothing short of magnificent.
Mm.
Regards to Ted, fantastic work on your even par round once again. Hope everyone got the reference with the episode name to even par
Yes.
was relation to Ted. So nice
Yes.
work. Anyway, this week, you might remember last week we had that little short but sweet piece of feedback saying that your zeal is
Is
infectious.
infectious. Yep.
It's lovely. I got something related to that as a text message through from someone in real time as they were listening
Okay.
to it. Sorry, and the text message said this. It said, "Your zeal might be infectious, but not as much as your sarcasm." And I find that
Oh.
I find that harsh. I don't think I've ever been sarcastic in this show.
I think there's been a fair bit of tongue in cheek, but so sarcasm, yeah, maybe.
I think that's harsh.
Mm.
Anyway, carries on to the next point. Different person. And this says, loved the Scotty Fisher episode. So did we.
Yep.
Said, love the Scotty Fisher episode. He sounds like a really nice bloke. He is.
He's a good
But it
bloke.
goes on. He's an excellent bloke. It goes on. It says, so my only question is, how did he get caught up with you two clowns?
Yes, yes. Well, long story, obviously. 30 years in the
Harsh.
making. That was so. Yeah, but you know,
Yeah. It's nice to see our listeners have got a huge amount of respect for our work, Andy
yeah.
Walker. The next one was a question, actually. Love a question from our listeners. So this one came through and is quite simple. It's, when will we see some competition between the two of you? It's good.
No,
It's a good question.
that is a very good question, because we have spoken about
Yeah.
maybe having some competition and yeah, seeing if we can put some I guess prizes or not in place.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I, I, I like the idea. Um, I don't exactly know what it might look like. So open to suggestions from people. Like there's a few options we could go with here, right? Like you could say a handicap target. You could argue. You could go with a strokes gained target. You could go with comp results or something along those lines. You could even just go with, sort of accountability on sticking to training plans.
Yep.
Or some combination of the above. Have a think about it, Andy Walker. Let's come back to this by the end of the episode and see if the old subconscious has worked on that as we chat, because I do think there's something in that might be useful for us.
Yeah, I certainly, if I was leaning towards something, I'd be leaning towards a strokes gained barometer, as well as the sticking to the plan. So they're probably my two benchmarks for where I'd like to see to have a competition and to see where we land. The handicap, yeah. Look, I think the handicap is probably a bit outcome based, and I'm not focused on handicap. I'm more focused on the strokes gained and the
Strokes gained.
process of the plan.
You could argue that's outcome based too.
It is. But I quite like the strokes gained data, and setting targets according to strokes gained, rather than the handicapping system.
I mean, I like one of the things I quite like is based on the handicapping system, and it is, of the two of us, the winner is the first person who can get their handicap into the eights.
I reckon that I've got a fair chance of that. In all honesty, the way my ball
You'll be soft capped before you get there.
the way my ball striking is going is definitely has definitely got an 8 in front of it. Probably even higher, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not in a good place, my driving.
Well, look, I think that's probably not a bad place to start, Andy Walker, because some of the discussion topics that we've got on the list for tonight certainly does involve your ball striking,
Mm,
because there's a couple of things that I'm interested to hear about from you. I don't mind which order that you attack this in, but it is firstly that there have been some challenges, is my understanding,
yes,
regarding getting to see your coach and
yes.
to pursuing the improvements that you've been working on.
Mm,
And then the other talking point that I really want to hear about is some results from your recent competition round
mm.
at your home club, which you briefly mentioned in the previous episode, but we agreed that we would hold over until this episode. So I don't mind which way around you want to maybe attack that, but they're kind of a couple of things I'd like to hear about.
Yeah, look, I mean, let's start at the comp round because that was sort of now a week or so ago. And yeah, I mean, I've obviously committed to playing more competition golf, and we sort of talked about, the high performance that are having a
Mm,
really uh, big impact in allowing me to work on my swing, but also allowing me to get out there and play in comps. Now, yeah, from a ball striking perspective, my ball striking was pretty poor. A couple of Tuesdays ago, it was yeah, it wasn't. I was pretty disappointed. I was expecting a better result because my last competition was a poor ball striking round, and I thought I'd fixed it up in the
mm,
9 holes that I played in between, but it just went back and sort of fell apart. And I actually got to a stage where I was playing to just the fattest part of the fairway, the fattest part of the green. And, in saying that, there are a couple of holes. So, for instance, the 13th hole, which has been my
mm,
nemesis that I
mm.
thought I'd sorted out, I actually took a 4-iron off the tee.
Wow.
And this is a relatively long par four. I think it's 386 meters, so over 400 yards.
Mm,
And it was playing a little bit downwind, but so I probably wouldn't have hit driver anyway. But I felt
mm.
so um, uncomfortable over the ball that I just thought, no, no, I'm just going to grab a 4-iron out of my bag and
Yeah.
try and hit the fairway. And I still almost hit it in the water. Like I
Ooh.
was in the left hand rough,
Mm,
probably maybe 10, 12 feet from the water. So it
mm,
just got to a point where I was, yeah, I just was not comfortable over the ball.
mm.
However, in saying that, my short game and putting saved my bacon. It's so we talked about obviously aim point I'm using with putting, and I'm using the clock system with my short game, and those two
Mm,
things worked really, really well.
mm,
To a point where I managed to get it around, even though I my ball striking was pretty poor, I still had 35 points. So I had six over playing off five, had six
that's
over
pretty good.
par
It's a good
for
round.
18 holes. So I wasn't look and I sort of say at the moment, if I break 80, I'm relatively happy. I had
Yeah.
78, it's past 72. So yeah, look, I'm disappointed with the ball striking, but I'm actually relatively well. I was really happy with my short game and putting, but I was relatively happy with the way I managed my way around the golf course. And I
Yeah.
think that sort of said more than necessarily the full ball striking.
Yeah. 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 There you go.
So look, I dropped zero point 0.1 of a shot, so I've gone from 4.7 to 4.6. So
That is
I'm
sort of
I'm I'm
exciting.
I'm back, baby. So
You're back.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
back on the way down again. So
You are
yeah,
back. Andy strikes back. Um,
something like that.
it's possibly not a bad name for the
Mm,
episode.
mm. So anyway, yeah, I've just realized how far I am. I've started down this journey of changing my swing and
Mm,
trying to basically eliminate my left, which has, been my bad shot my nemesis for a long time now. And even when I've been playing well, there's always been that chance that the ball's going to go left off the club face, and
Yeah.
that's been the case for years. I know that's my bad shot. It's always been something that I've fought, and I've started down the journey of trying to eliminate that left side of the fairway or that left side of the green. I mean, I'm not going to eliminate it totally because even the best pros hit it left occasionally, but I certainly, and what Neil was talking about in that if you're going to eliminate hitting it, like you a poor shot down one side of the fairway and you've only got the other side of the fairway that to work with, then that's going to make compensating for hitting it poorly a lot better. Whereas at the moment, I can hit it left or I can hit it right, and that's not a good place to be.
Can you hit a cut like reliably?
No, no, no.
Mm.
A left or right is not a comfortable shot for me. And in fact, a lot of the times where I've tried to hit a left or right shot off the
That's when you
tee,
come over the top and duck hook.
it's gone like low left, going further left.
Yeah.
That's not a good place to be.
Yeah. Okay. I will not attempt to give you any advice at this point in
Mm,
time. I don't feel
mm.
that is my role in this relationship. But that it's probably not a bad kind of a transition into a conversation about what's going on with the coaching situation.
Yeah, yeah, and as we talked about, I had a coaching session at the end of November.
Mm.
Answered a lot of questions that I had as to why I was hitting it left, and sort of spelled out laid out the journey that I need to go on in order to get that left side out of my, or at least the bad left shot out of my game. But the challenge I've got, I mean, my coach is about an hour and a half away,
Mm.
and trying to get back down to Sydney has been challenging. I mean, and in fact, I haven't been able to get back down there as yet, and it's coming up to 3 months, and I mean, February is one of my busier months in my quarterly cycles. So this month isn't a great month. I'm going to try and get down there next month. But even that, I know I've got a couple of things on, so I may or may not get down there. But yeah, it's just getting to a stage where 3 months is too long in between uh, the visits and coaching sessions, which means I'm now searching. I feel as though what we covered in November, I understand, and I've implemented that into my swing, but it's
Mm.
not enough. That was step one. And
Yep.
even my coach was saying this is the first step. Okay, there's more
Yep.
to go. So now I'm watching YouTube videos to try and figure out what that next step is. And as we talked about on the weekend, I've started reading Ben Hogan's 5 Lessons, which is an amazing book. I mean, that guy was so far ahead of his
Mm.
time. But Ben Hogan fought going left in the early part of his career, and he overcame it, which is
Mm.
why I sort of picked up his book to try and understand what he did to overcome hitting it left. And what he talks about makes perfect sense. So now I'm trying to take what he's talking about in certainly in the downswing and trying to implement that into my game. But I
Mm.
don't know if I'm doing it correctly. I'm taking video analysis in the high performance center, and I'm looking at the video and I'm trying to figure out whether my club face and club header are in the right position. But yeah, I could really do with some help when it comes to understanding whether that is the case, because
Yeah.
I'm sort of feel like I'm doing it by myself at the moment, and that's not necessarily the best way to go about it. Especially, I mean, I'm no expert, and I'm just doing it based on what I'm learning at the time and what I'm seeing in the videos that I'm taking.
Yeah. I think, we've covered the value of that versus an actual coach in previous episodes. And I think we both
Mm,
know that, obviously there's certain improvements that you can make on your own, but it's very difficult without a trained eye that's actually looking at you.
yeah.
The whole feel versus real question as well that starts to come in there with what you think you're
Mm,
doing versus what you're actually doing. That's where
yeah.
video is good though, because
Mm,
you really do get to see a few things on the video that you don't you don't sort of realize that you're doing
Mm,
some of the
mm.
movements that you make. So that's useful,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. And look, there are some movements which I look at, and after reading some of the especially the Hogan books, some of the things that he talks about, I look at some of the videos of my swing and I go, yeah, I am just nowhere near that position that he talks about. And
Yeah.
there are a couple of early videos of him swinging, and you can see that he's doing what he talks about in the book.
Yeah.
And he talks about sequencing, but doesn't say it. He doesn't say sequencing. He says it in his own words. He talks about shallowing the club on the downswing, but he talks about in relation to swing plane rather
Yeah.
than talking about shallowing. Which I mean, swing plane. You don't necessarily hear a lot about swing plane these days. It's sort of more of an older concept, but he talks about the swing plane on the backswing, and that it's actually a different swing plane, a shallower swing plane on the downswing. And you know, you look at some of the pros, and you look at sort of that early footage of Ben Hogan, and it makes perfect sense. And you say, oh yeah, I can see what they're doing. So I'm trying to implement some of those techniques into my swing when I'm in the high performance center. But it would be handy if I just had a professional set of eyes to go, yeah, you're on the right
Yeah.
track, or
Yeah.
this is what you
Or
need to
this
be
is what you need to
doing.
do. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah,
And the order in which you need to do it as well, which you talked about
yeah,
previously
yeah. And
with
look,
Joe.
I was really impressed with Joe in November, and I really want to continue on with her as my coach. I think she's got a fabulous facility, and you know, what she said to me made perfect sense. And in the reading and what I've learned since then, I can see what she's said,
Yeah.
and the journey that she wants me to go on. And again, it's all really good, but trying to get down there on a regular basis is a bit of a challenge. And
For sure.
I'm sort of in two minds as to what I do, because I don't want to start with a new coach, you know, because I've already sort of come as far as I have. So, you know, where do I go from here? And
Mm.
I don't really have the answer to that question.
No, it's a tough one. I'm sort of in a not dissimilar situation, with one exception that I haven't actually started with a coach at this point. Minor details, Andy Walker.
Yeah, yeah,
Still working on it. I'm still working
mm,
on it. But you're right. Like that's a challenge. Like I've been trying to figure out things that I'm doing on my own and through sort of some internet investigation. And again, it's an area that's just so fraught with a million and one different theories,
yes,
some of which may or may not be relevant. And you know, I think all I've been doing is trying to mess around with certain things, give them a go, see if they work, and if they do, great. If they don't, obviously, don't pursue.
yep.
Um, but I know that that's not going to see sustained long term improvement. But anyway, that's another issue to deal with. Any other little insights, Andy Walker, for you to share?
Um, well, interestingly, I had sort of different to my swing and game as such. I had a little incident, I guess, while I was in the comp
Ooh,
at my home club the other week, when I was on the eighth hole, and the eighth hole is a par five,
yeah,
and there is water short of the green. And well, it's actually not water. It's now sort of a bit of a, because we've been a bit dry. It's sort of a little bit of muddy, long grass area.
mm,
And I have previously hit my ball into that hazard, and it just goes underground. Like there's, you know, you haven't been able to find it, and you don't want to start walking out there because you sink about a
yeah,
foot into the mud. So I hit my second shot down to about sort of 50 meters short of the pin, and my pitch shot, I just fatted my pitch shot straight into the hazard.
mm,
And after, you know, some choice words, I took a drop, and then hit my next shot to about a foot from
Mm.
the flag. So I sort of went, okay, well, I've recovered. It's a bogey. That's fine. Then I've sort of gone around, and my playing partner went and had a look and said, "Oh, your ball's just here in the hazard in the long grass, so you can come and play it."
But it's
And
in the hazard.
I went, yeah, but it was just in the long grass, so it was actually dry,
Yeah.
and I could have hit it. And I
Yeah.
looked at it and I went, actually, I can't.
You've holed out.
Well, I didn't actually hole out. My pitch shot was still a
Oh, it's
foot from
still
the flag,
still sitting a foot. Yeah.
right? But in the rules of golf, you can hit a provisional
Mm.
if you believe your ball is lost.
Mm.
So if you believe, and your ball can go in the hazard, and if you believe that there's a reasonable chance of being lost, then you can hit a provisional. If you just dunk your ball into the hazard, you're not actually not allowed to hit a provisional. You've actually
Mm.
got to either find your ball and hit it before you take your penalty, or if you take a drop, that's the ball that's in play. You can't then go
Sure.
around and find your ball and play it.
Mm.
And my marker just said, "Oh, you can play that. You're right. Just play it. Everyone else would play it." And I
Mm.
just went, "No,
No.
not going to play it because that's not in the rules of golf." And well, not technically, I would have been cheating if
Mm.
that is the case. Now it's questionable whether, given it was a foot from the flag, whether I would have made a better score by hitting it. But there was a chance I could have got up and down for par.
Yes.
But again, we come back to the game of golf and the integrity and the ethics and what I'm trying to teach my son and
Yeah.
how I hold myself accountable. It's really interesting that my mark is sort of encouraging me to play it. Oh yeah, everyone else does it.
You do.
And
You do
I just
hear
went,
about.
you know what?
You
No,
do hear
no,
about that. Yeah.
I want to adhere to my own ethics and integrity, and I'm going to adhere to the rules of golf.
Mm.
So that was drilled into me a lot by David McCollum. He was one of the ones
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
who
Yeah.
who said to me, even if you're, in the trees by yourself
Yeah.
and you're trying to pull, say, some twigs from your ball and you move it,
Then you've moved
you've
it.
you've got to call the penalty upon yourself. No one
Yeah.
else is going to know but you're the one that's got to call it on
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was, as much as my old man taught me never give up. David McClellan was one of those ones about the integrity of the game and making sure that I was playing within the rules and I had my own ethics and integrity while I was playing. So yeah, it was just an interesting little story about
It is.
what is generally accepted on a golf course and what everyone else, well, not everyone else, but what a lot of people would do versus, golf's obviously a very individual sport. And for me, a lot of it is challenging myself and being the best that I can be.
Mm.
And part of
Mm.
that is my own integrity and my own
Mm.
ethics. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it was just an interesting little sort of story that unfolded while I was in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Lloyd.
Yeah. 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 No, I mean, look, not dissimilar situation. I think you might recall going back. I think it was the other side of Christmas when I was playing the final hole in a competition round, and we believed very strongly that a social player playing an adjacent hole
Ah,
took the
yes,
ball.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, and it was the same sort of thing. Like some of the guys in the group were saying, "Oh, we know he took it. Just drop one there."
Yeah.
Like because that's you know, that you should be able to replace your ball where he's taken it. But the thing was that he didn't admit that.
Mm,
He didn't say, "Oh yeah, there, I picked it up from there." He said, "No, I haven't." So I, in my mind, had no alternative but say it's a lost ball and I've got to go back to the tee.
yeah. Yeah.
As annoying and frustrating as that was, um, otherwise, if I had dropped a ball there and gone on and made a par, um, yeah, how do you feel about that? That's really
Yeah.
hollow, and it's you
Yeah.
are effectively cheating. Well, not effectively,
Mm,
you are cheating. You're not
yeah.
playing by the rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
that's an interesting one.
yeah, yeah, and that's it. At the end of the day, it's it's you against effectively you against the golf course,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that's it. And whether you make par or bogey on one particular hole, that's irrelevant. That's just an event. But playing with integrity and with ethics and within the rules of the game, that actually comes back to I think how you feel about yourself and whether you can look in the mirror and feel good about what you see.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and and
yeah.
that to me is a much bigger issue than whether I make a par or a bogey on one particular hole,
Of
and
course
which
it
is
is.
just what one event.
Of course it is. I've often felt that the best job interview would be a round of golf with a prospective employee,
Yeah.
not to see how well they play, like
Mm,
nothing to do with that, but to see how they conduct themselves, because I
yeah.
think you can see pretty clearly the sort of conduct and the standards that people are
Yeah.
prepared to accept of themselves on the golf
Mm,
course is going to transfer
mm.
pretty quickly into the workplace.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
I
interestingly, when I joined New South Wales Golf Club, came up from Mollymook, I actually had a playing interview at New South Wales with the club captain.
Yeah,
And I shot
totally.
88. It was
Yeah,
windy as hell. I shot 88.
yeah,
And everyone asked, when we got back into the clubhouse, oh, how'd he go? How'd he go? And the captain said, didn't play that well, but he'll be a good fit for this club.
yeah, yeah. I think totally reasonable when you're talking about joining the A grade pennant side of a prestigious golf club to have a playing interview.
Yeah.
When you're employing someone into a organization completely unrelated to the industry of golf,
Well, that's true.
I
Yeah.
feel like I'm going to struggle to get that one past the HR
Yeah.
department. But
Yeah. Yeah. I reckon you
um,
might struggle with that.
yeah, but it's worth a shot.
Mm.
Because we can see definitely how that goes. Very, very interesting. So I've also had a recent comp round, Andy Walker,
Oh,
um,
yes. Yep.
which was a lot of fun. Once again, journeyed down to the very friendly Wentworth Golf Club down in Orange, and had a crack down there on Saturday in the competition. Once again, group of people that I didn't know, and got thrust into a four ball there with a bunch of guys that I didn't know. Incredibly nice guys. As it
Yep.
turns out, one of them was in fact the father-in-law of someone that I do know. So it's a small world. But
Yep.
nevertheless, that was really good. And I won't go into the gory detail, but I will say this: it was 33 points,
Nice.
which is not a great round, not a terrible round,
Mm.
by any stretch. 15 points. We played the back nine first, so on the back, and then 18 points on the front, which was good. So that was 4 over for the front nine, so that wasn't a bad nine. And I think, look, I feel like that you haven't played too badly when you get to the end of a round with three other guys that you've never met, and when they say thanks, great to meet you, and they follow it up with, oh, by the way, we've got a four-person Ambrose in 2 weeks. Would you be prepared to join our team for that? I feel like that's a vote of confidence, Andy
Yeah.
Walker.
Yeah. Yeah. But being invited back to anywhere, really, you've made a reasonable impression when you get
Yeah,
invited back.
I think you haven't embarrassed yourself at that point, so that
Yeah.
that was
It's
nice.
it's it's sort of like the second date, isn't it? Like if you get through the first date and you actually get a second date, you've done okay.
Yeah,
Whereas
maybe,
if you don't
maybe,
get the second date, then you know that
yeah,
maybe didn't
yeah,
quite go as I thought it
yeah,
would,
yeah.
or maybe it did
No,
go as you thought it had. Yeah,
maybe,
yeah,
maybe the feeling was mutual.
yeah.
But there's something that I did want to talk to you about this round of golf. There's a couple of things that stem out of it, and we might start with the bad news, and then we'll go to the good news. So,
Okay. Yep.
I sent you a video earlier, which was a bit of chipping practice that I was having down at the
Yes.
Missing Links Golf Show High
Mm.
Performance Centre Central West, Annex short game area. And you might be wondering why I sent that. Now, the
Yeah,
reason
because
that
I couldn't quite see where the chips finished because it was on my phone and the resolution wasn't quite there, and I sort of, did he hole
yeah,
one? Is there?
yeah,
So
no, no,
I'm
no,
I,
no,
I'm I'm
no,
I'm
no.
in I'm in suspense here.
They were all of those four. Just so you know, of those four chips that I hit there, I was about probably I want to say about maybe 30 meters from the flag that I was chipping to.
Mm,
Four balls, up and down three of them, out of the four. So that
nice.
was
Mm.
that was good. That's kind of what I was after.
So 75%. It's always a
Yeah, yeah,
good number.
yeah, yeah. And look, I did that half a dozen times and was probably sitting a bit over 50%. So anyway, that was good. But the reason for it was because there's a word that has sprung up in certain episodes of the Missing Links Golf Show, and in fact, it was even talked about in the last episode with Scotty. Starts with an S, ends with a Hank. Um,
Oh,
yeah, the dreaded Shank.
mm,
So on the not worrying about the actual numbers of the holes, but just talking about the order that we played them on the eighth hole. Eighth hole on Saturday. Um, Decent par three, sort of about 200-meter par three, down the hill. Hit the four hybrid down there. Missed the green just to the left. It was about pin high. Not the easiest chip because it's kind of uphill. I was probably about, I don't know, I was about probably 6 foot below the level of the green, and the flag was, I was short sided, so the flag was there.
I'm
Um,
hearing excuses, I think.
I was about to say all of this information is completely irrelevant because what happened is I took the club back and I dead set 90 degrees, shanked it.
Excellent.
Um,
Good one.
yeah, straight over there. And I went, oh, okay, that's one of those things that happens in the game of golf. Changed wedges just out of
Mm.
superstition, from
So,
56 to
so,
the
so when you
52.
hit the shank, did you actually think of me when you hit the shank?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 And I thought Andy Walker's gonna love this story. So anyhow, changed wedges, chipped on, made the putt actually. So I made bogey, so it was all right. Anyway, few holes later, another par four, which would have been the 10th, 11th, 12th,
Mm.
as it turned out. So the third actually is the course plays, but par four again, missed the green left, about pin high, pretty easy chip realistically. Um, Another shank,
Ooh,
like in a dead set hosel rocket. This one's
wow.
like
Okay.
really gone hard left. So I thought, yeah, that's starting to get into the psyche just a touch.
Mm, mm.
Couple of holes later, par three, missed the green in the bunker, short sided in the bunker. Just a nice little,
And and what are you thinking?
nice little. Oh, so many things at this point. Short sided in the bunker, so I actually had to play quite a delicate little, sort of flop shot out of the bunker, and I I shanked it sideways out of the bunker to the back of the green.
Nice. Nice.
Um, and yeah, at this point, like three in a round, I have never done that before.
Mm.
So I was seeking questions. So after the round, this may surprise you to hear, Andy Walker. I did some googling. Um,
Or watch some YouTube videos.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
There's
So
nothing like watching YouTube videos to sort
yeah,
yourself out.
yeah, and there's also there's a very sobering moment in your golfing life when you find yourself typing into the Google search bar, "Why do I shank my sandwich?"
Yeah, been there.
Um, there were two reasons that I thought might have been relevant.
Mm.
One of them is very simple, and it is standing too close to the ball and actually not giving enough room, because as you're gripping down the shaft a little bit on a lot of these shots around the green, but still having your hands kind of a similar distance from your legs, but the butt of the club's kind of coming up a little bit.
Mm.
It actually needs a little bit more space
Mm.
to go
Mm.
through. So standing what you think's normal but slightly too close to the ball,
Mm.
is one of the reasons why you might
Mm.
hit the hosel. So I
Although
thought, yeah,
in
well,
saying that, there is, and you look at how close John Rahm stands to the ball when he's chipping.
oh, I
Like
know, I know, I know.
his hands are
He's almost
almost on
stands
his
on it.
thighs. Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
I know.
So it's a very modern way of chipping. He's standing actually quite close to the ball, which I would have thought brings the hosel into play, but obviously they
So
practice it enough to. not
Oh,
have to
I
worry
mean,
about it.
and also as you know, you don't necessarily model your swing off the pros because they've always got a lot of interesting idiosyncrasies, but they
Yeah.
make it work, and that's
Mm.
their particular style. But on that, like, because this has happened from time to time for me. Okay, this is not necessarily completely and utterly out of the blue. It has happened from time to time, and sometimes what I've done is actually then just address the ball on the toe of the
Mm.
wedge.
Yeah.
Now, I was watching a video on YouTube about this exact method of dealing with it, and the feedback from the pro that recorded, well, I assume the pro, the YouTube influencer potentially, was that that's the wrong thing to do
Yeah. Right.
because what it's doing, your subconscious brain, like the motor learning processes and the self-organizing, I think that Adam Young talks about
Yeah.
as an example. Um, it knows that you've addressed it off the toe, so
Mm.
it's self-organizing the body to actually throw the center of the club face further out, which is actually pushing the hosel closer to the ball on your
Yeah.
downswing.
Yeah.
So what he was actually suggesting is don't address it on the toe, actually address it on the hosel
Yeah. Right.
and force yourself to do the opposite. So you're not training yourself to throw the hands out, you're actually training yourself to bring them back in. Which I thought was pretty wild,
Mm. Mm.
but was interesting. So on the first instance is actually just step sort of a ball width back away from the ball
Yeah.
to give yourself the room, and then maybe actually try this so that you're deliberately channeling the club back on the inside. The other thing that he
Mm.
talked about, and this is why I sent you the video, is that if you've got a sort of a swing that rather than pendulum straight up and down and your takeaway is straight back, but if you come inside on your
Mm.
takeaway and you're
Yeah.
more around, then you're actually probably more likely to hit the hosel as well because the
Yes.
motion of the club's going out towards the ball.
Yeah.
So I got down there into the Missing Links Golf Show High Performance Centre Central West Annex short game area this afternoon. That is a
Mm.
mouthful.
Yes.
And I was having a look at that video from behind, and far out, my takeaway goes like around a flat circle
Mm. Yeah.
straight behind me.
Yeah.
So
I did notice that. Yeah.
the video that I sent you was me trying to accentuate a straight takeaway.
All right. Okay. Wow. All right. It's interesting because as I've practiced my short game more, one of the things that I've really tried to work on is going slightly outside the line and opening my club face more. So as on the downswing,
Yeah.
I can be a bit more aggressive to make sure I'm not decelerating because that's been one of my weak points is the decel. So the acceleration and just having the club face slightly open, but coming from outside and coming across it, which for my full swing isn't necessarily the best thing,
No,
but it's been great for
no.
my short game.
Yeah, yeah. So I feel like in the half an hour that I spent there in the Missing Links Golf Show High Performance Centre Central West Annex short game area, that I did make some progress, but I also feel like this has just identified a massive area that needs work.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Mm,
yeah.
mm,
But at the same time, there were some really positive signs down there, and I'm starting to get to a point where I'm actually just working. I think I've talked about this before, working on two types of chips around the green. One is just your more standard, let the loft do the work and the ball roll out a bit, and the other where you're really trying to come under it and flop it in the air and stop it more
yep.
quickly.
Mm,
I
mm,
do feel like there's been improvement there, and I kind of know what I'm doing a little bit more now. But getting some video of it, actually, that's really useful. So that whole
yep.
video
Mm.
analysis piece. So there was that, which is the bad news. The good news, I want to talk about putting. I do want to talk about putting.
Because you were
So,
struggling with putting a month or so ago prior to our
mate,
chat with Neil Smith.
I dead set was putting with a door snake on
Yeah.
cobblestones.
Mm,
Was what it felt like, and it was terrifying, and it was getting very negative.
yep.
And I remember, and I think I was talking about it a few episodes ago that in my head I was thinking about all of the different ways that a putt would potentially miss, and really tying myself in knots about whether or not it was going to go in the hole. was this
Well,
whole miss or make.
yeah, well, I remember the conversation we had where you said that you got over, say, an 8 foot putt, and your thought process was, well, the pros only make 50% of 8 footers. What chance
Yeah.
do I have?
It
And
it was meant to be free. It was meant to be freeing to go, oh, you shouldn't be so concerned about it. But it was
yeah,
so demoralizing at the same time.
yes, yeah,
It was a bad thought process.
mm,
Now, what's happened? What's changed? Nothing technical at all.
mm,
Um, Nothing technical. What's changed? The conversation with Neil, which was about that, you know, getting yourself planning the shot, committing to the shot, executing the shot, focusing on the
yep,
process, not the outcome.
yep,
So, what I've endeavored to do from a putting perspective is have two thoughts. So, you spend the time reading the putt beforehand, that doesn't change. Put the ball down. I like to have the line pointing, like I draw the line on the ball, and that line
yep,
points on the line that I want to putt it. And my aim is to roll that line so that I know that I've struck it square. Obviously, there's a lot of different people have different ways, but that's the way I like to do it. So my thought process is two things and two things only at the moment. One is um, just roll the line, and the second is get the ball to the hole.
yep,
And so for me, a successful putt now is if I roll the line. So that means that I hit it on my intended start line and I hit it square so that it rolls on that line
yep,
and I get it to the hole. And
yep,
in my mind, if it goes in, that's great. If it doesn't go in, I don't care because I've hit the
mm,
putt that I want to hit. And that's what I'm focusing on. And that's all that I'm thinking about. And that takes away all of the thought about make it or miss it. And as a result, it takes the tension away because my issues with my putts generally is I was missing them short because I was tensing and getting, you know, quite quite nervous at it of will it go in, won't it, and as a result leaving it short. So this
yep,
process is actually now getting so many more putts to the hole. I sunk a lot of really good putts
mm,
in the round on the weekend, and that, to be honest, my putter made up for a lot of the damage that my wedge was doing.
yep,
Um,
yep,
so it was really really good to the point. Now, as we mentioned off air, my strokes gained stat on my putting for the last couple of rounds now is plus 0.77 against a scratch
yeah,
handicapper. So
yeah,
it's it was that's turned around about 4 or 5 shots
yep.
around as a
Mm.
result of that.
Yeah, no, that's a great effort. Like to actually be in front, to have a
Yeah,
plus strokes gained against a scratch handicap is good. That's a good place to be.
yeah. So that was really really exciting. And even today, down at the here we go, the Missing Links Golf Show High Performance Centre Central West Annex Short Game Practice Area. It was really good. It's feeling really fluid as a
Mm,
result of that, just doing those two things, that process. And a lot of that is just having a clear mental process that allows the body
mm.
to actually do what it needs to do. So
Yeah, it was
it's
interesting.
exciting.
It might have been one of the audio books I was listening to. It might have even been Gary Player's audio book, The Don't Choke, that he was
So good.
talking about. It's a great title, isn't it?
Yeah.
He was talking about, I think it was Peter Jacobson, and Peter Jacobson was being interviewed about a particular round, and he'd missed a few putts, and he was, being sort of questioned about it by the media, and he said, "Well, I actually didn't miss the putt."
Yeah. The hole
And
was in the wrong spot.
the way the media said was, well, it missed the hole. What are you talking about? He goes, no, no, I actually hit the putt
I
that
hit
I
the putt I want.
wanted
Yeah.
on my intended line. I didn't miss the putt. It didn't go in the hole, but I actually hit the putt that I want. I actually made the putt
Yeah.
that I wanted. So that's an interesting way to look at it. And as we know, given grass is not a perfect surface, even if you hit the best putt that you've ever hit, it may not necessarily go in the hole. But if you stick to your process and if you stick to the way you want to hit it at the speed and the line that you want to hit it, then that's all you can do. The rest of it really is in the lap of the gods a lot of the
Absolutely.
time.
Absolutely. So I think for anyone listening, that episode with Neil Smith, that's at the moment, at least, touch wood, nothing's forever, but that has enabled me to turn my putting woes completely around 180 degrees. So if anyone's out there, get back to that episode, have another
Yeah.
listen.
Yep.
There's so much gold in there. I think there's probably, many more answers in there as well that we haven't even tapped into. It's such a good resource.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that was
I
cool.
might, because I got to go to Sydney tomorrow, so I might actually listen to that podcast episode on the way down to Sydney
I
again,
think it's
because it's
worthwhile.
yeah, it's been a couple of weeks since I listened to it, and I've just been trying to, absorb some of that information, but it's probably time I listen to it
Yeah.
again, and maybe on the way back I'll listen to the Scotty Fisher episode.
Which is quality. I love it. There's so much good stuff in there. They're two very different episodes. I'd
They
like to
are.
merge. I'd like to merge the two, and I'd like a time machine because I think Neil needs to go and have a chat with the Scotty Fisher that was the touring pro.
Exactly.
Just
Yeah.
listening to that,
Yeah.
there were a few mental demons floating around poor
Mm.
Scotty's head. No, but that was a really good breakthrough, I think. And what I didn't mention, sorry, this is an important piece of information, is that round at Wentworth at 33 points did become a flagged round.
Ooh.
Andy Walker became a flagged
At
round
33 points,
at
flag round.
33 points. So you need to
How do you,
understand.
how do you feel about that?
You need to understand a couple of things. As handicaps move, 36 points if I was playing off 12 is not as well, is about the same as 33 points playing off 9, right? Because I was playing off 9 on the weekend. So it's all relative, and it's not about your average. It's your best 8 out of your last 20,
Mm,
Andy Walker.
correct.
So that's why it becomes flag round. We've been down this path, and you know how it works. What that means, though, is I will see your 0.1 reduction in handicap, and I will raise that to a 0.2 reduction of handicap, which takes me now down to 9.0. Andy Walker,
Nice.
9.0.
Nice. And if you look at that relatively, point one from 4.7 to 4.6 from a percentage perspective is around about point two from 9.2 to 9.0. So I see them about equal.
Well, you're right, because it's exactly the same. That is
I'm clutching at straws. I'm clutching at
no,
straws,
no, no, no. I think we need to celebrate
that's how I
this.
see it.
We need to celebrate this moment because 16 episodes in, Andy Walker, you finally got a maths equation correct. That's quite a moment. So well done,
Thank you.
well done.
Thank you. Thank
We're
you
all
very much.
learning and developing. I mean, some
We
in golf
are.
skills
We
and others
are.
in math skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's impressive. But no, that and what that means is this is the first time in the history of the Missing Links Golf Show where we were both seeing a handicap reduction in the same week.
That's quality. That's quality.
So that's exciting.
The only way is up or down,
No, no, stop
as
saying
as
that.
it would be. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, far out. That's so good. Yeah. So look, that's been what's been going on. Another thing that's been going on in the background. Sorry, and I just we're nearly at the hour point, but I do want to raise this, and the thought occurred to me earlier when we were chatting about other topics. Totally unrelated to us. Professional golf for a moment. That's
Yes.
going on out there in the world. We've just seen there's 2 tournaments that were played on the weekend, recent weekend before
Yep.
we recorded this episode. Not
Yep.
sure when we'll release it. Anyway, it was the Phoenix Waste Management
Yes.
and Live Golf
The,
Las Vegas.
or the Phoenix wasted management,
Well, yeah,
as
yeah,
it became known.
it did. Similarities between the behavior of the fans at both events, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I want to talk about, and this was interesting. I had this realization earlier this evening. Is I had the opportunity the last couple of nights to sit down and watch some golf.
Yep.
Could have watched either tournament. And generally speaking, I've been a PGA Tour watcher, along with the DP World Tour or the old European Tour. Kind of, I
Yep.
probably prefer that. A bit like Scotty Fisher, actually. There's something about that that's just
Yeah.
kind of good to watch.
Yep. Yeah.
I put on the Wasted Management Phoenix Open, and I started
Yep.
watching it, and I went, no disrespect intended to any of the guys that were playing, but I went, I'm watching, Nick Taylor, Sahith Theegala, all very good players, watching them go around, or I could be watching Cam Smith, John Rahm, Dustin Johnson, Bryson DeChambeau, Tyrrell Hatton, etc., Sergio Garcia
Mm.
on the other event.
Yeah.
And the thought occurred to me, it's a no-brainer. Like
Mm.
it's a no contest.
Mm.
Outside of the designated events where your Rorys and the big names, Jordan Spieth and JT and those guys, outside of those events when they're playing, Liv is all over the PGA Tour when it comes to the playing roster,
Mm. Yeah, look,
and therefore
I
for me
don't.
a bit more interesting to watch.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I'm not a fan of the live format. I just 54 holes for me is not a tournament, and that's what I've said. We've had this discussion before, and I think live is closer to exhibition golf than what it is to tournament golf. I'm not a fan of the combining team events with individual events. I think you've got to sort of do one or the other. I think you start getting too conflicted if you're playing as an individual, but also part of a team. You know, where do you put your priorities? Which is quite obviously for most of the players as an individual, and the team event would be just the secondary
Well, I
competition.
mean, at the end of the day, the two go hand in hand. If you shoot the best score you can possibly shoot, you're going to be in front of both. So,
Mm, yeah.
I think I don't think it's an issue, but I I don't disagree with you. I'm not really a fan of the format. The thing that
Mm.
absolutely got my goat watching live was the music
Yeah.
on some of those holes. And it wasn't the fact that there was music, it was just I couldn't stand the music. And that
Yeah.
might be to do with the fact that this is a couple of middle aged blokes talking about golf.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I take that on board wholeheartedly. But just simply, honestly, simply from the fact of the players that were playing in each of the events, when I looked on the one hand and it was, you know, a bunch of people who just don't think there's much a household name and quite, at that same level. They're very, very good players. Don't get me wrong. Sahith Theegala, excellent player. Nick Taylor, excellent player. Um, but he's not the guy that's going to get me to go and buy a ticket to a golf tournament,
Mm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
whereas if John Rahm's playing, Cam Smith's playing, Sergio's playing, Dustin's playing, Bryson's playing, like, I'm probably going to want to go and watch. And that
You,
was
you you don't want to go and watch Scotty Scheffler's putting? Maybe learn some stuff.
no. I mean, to be
Look,
fair, he was playing in Phoenix as well, but he wasn't playing well.
yeah.
Um,
Well, actually,
I thought it was interesting.
ball
Yeah,
striking, he striped it. He was
yeah,
striking it really, really well. I don't think he had his best putting week.
yeah. But I guess the point that I'm making is that whilst on the one hand we go, yeah, Live's a bit of an exhibition tour and it's got some warts on it. I don't know. I feel like this year it's
Mm.
getting a bit of credibility and it's probably going to
Yeah.
be drawing a fair few fans that it didn't have before. And
Yeah.
I do think that Rambo moving across is making a difference.
That's been a massive move. I have to
Yeah,
admit that's been the coup of
yeah,
of the decade, not just the year.
yeah.
Having Rambo over there is a massive win for Liv. But at the end of the day, I don't know if now that the Liv supposedly and or the PIF and the PGA Tour are meant to be talking, I reckon Rambo's just gone, no, no, there's no moral side anymore. I'm just taking the cash. Thanks very much. I'm going.
Oh,
So
look,
I'm not convinced that he would have gone if
probably.
it wasn't for the
Look, maybe
fact
not.
if they were still at war and there were still all the legal battles and the like.
Maybe not. But this much I will say. You have a wife, I have a wife. Fortunately, they're different people. Otherwise, this would be a weird show. But if you came home from work one day and you said, the competitor has just offered me $1 billion to go and
Mm,
join their organization, not a slight pay rise, but in
mm,
Australian dollars, $1 billion.
yeah.
I'll say that again, $1 billion.
Mm,
And you came home and you said to your wife, I knocked it back because I got principles.
mm.
How do you reckon that'd go?
Well, my wife's South American, so not particularly well. Uh, Not sure if I would actually have a home and a marriage after that
Yeah,
discussion, but certainly, yeah. Look, and it's putting it like that, it's not because that's looking at it from a job perspective, and it's a lot. There's a
it's
lot
looking at
more.
it. It's actually looking at it from $1 billion perspective.
Yeah, it
Is
is,
what I'm
but
doing.
the complexities between with that decision are greater than if you were working for one particular bank and the next bank across offered you a significant pay rise. It's a bit more complex than that, but certainly there's a lot of and where they are now, there's probably not a reason not to go across to live. Whereas this time last year when they were both at war, I understood the two sides and where they were both coming from.
100%, and it is obviously a complex issue, and a lot of people have got a lot of views on it. And I'll raise it tonight, the end of the
Mm,
episode, A to see if it'll draw any comment and how many people are listening this deep into the episode. But
mm,
also
mm,
just because for me, the realization kind of kicked in that for the and it was a personal thing, but it was the very first time it's happened, and I don't think I'll be alone. Where I was sitting there and I went, I could choose to watch either because you know they're both on streaming services,
yep.
and it's the very first time my decision was I choose to watch Live over PGA Tour
Yeah, right.
because of the playing roster.
Mm. Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting. Mm,
yeah. The music on the tee boxes annoyed me, but and some of the commentary annoyed me, and continually calling it championship Sunday when it's not actually a major championship was a little bit annoying. There's a
mm.
lot of things that are great,
Yep.
but at the end of the day, I felt like I was watching a better quality of golf, of
Mm.
actual golf with the
Yep.
golfers playing than watching the PGA Tour, and that's the first time I've ever had that feeling.
Was that because of the quality of the golf, or that was because it was the names that you were watching?
It's hard to definitively say because of the quality of the golf, because their golfers playing
Mm.
different golf courses in different conditions. So
Yeah.
it's not about the scoring relative to par, but I felt like there was a lot more interesting personalities that play a high quality of the game
Mm.
competing against each other.
Yep.
Um, with the exception of Cam Smith, who was not playing a high quality of golf during that tournament, but that's a separate issue. Cam, I think,
Mm.
actually, Cam, if you're listening, probably have a listen to the Neil Smith episode.
I'm sure he could actually go up and probably have a conversation directly with Neil Smith. I reckon he's got the contacts to be able to do that.
Probably could. Whether he will,
Mm,
who knows?
mm,
A bit going on there, but yeah, look, it was just interesting. So for me, that was something that I thought. I just felt like there's a bit of a shift in
mm,
the balance of where world golf is at the moment.
mm,
Yeah,
mm.
interested
Well,
to see how
it's
it pans
it's
out.
it's an interesting conversation because, and we've discussed, the where we think world golf should go, and it's a bigger topic than this episode. Maybe we should do an episode on just for something different on where we think world golf should go, because I definitely think there's a place for team events, and we're talking Ryder Cup, President's Cup, those events. So I think the tribalism that brings to golf and match play. I'm as I spoke about with Scotty Fisher last week. I'm a massive fan of match play in
Yeah,
golf. In fact, the Olympics I think should be match play, whereas it's stroke play
yeah,
in the
yeah,
Olympics. But leaving that to the side, I think that there's definitely a path that I think golf should take, which is a combination of individual world tour events. I like what Rory McIlroy had to say. It's probably a month ago that the National Opens are probably where the
yes,
World Golf Tour should go. I mean, you look at the history of the Australian Open and the names of the Australian Open. Obviously, I'm pretty biased in regards to the Australian Open, but when you look at Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, Greg Norman, the massive names in the world of golf are on that trophy. Huge history of in the Australian Open. So and there are a lot of national opens with that level of history,
for sure.
attached to them. So to have a world tour, similar to, I think Rory was talking about the Formula One circuit, that there should, a stop in every country. Well, not
Yeah.
every country, but a lot of countries with a, you know, a national open of the standard of the Australian Open. I think that's a great format, and then have the four majors around that, and then maybe some team events. So
Mm.
yeah, even though I said we weren't going to get into it, there we go.
Interesting.
There's my summary of it. But yeah, look, that's a deeper topic that we could potentially delve into around that I think Liv has tried to do it to a certain extent, but I don't think they've done it as well as what they could have.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think my view on Live is that the team element's interesting. I take your point on, can you play individual and team at the same time? I think when you're playing the same format, you can, because in that situation, what are you trying to do for your team? The best thing you can do for your team is to shoot the lowest individual score that you possibly can. And if you do that, you'll be leading the individual event as well. So I don't think that there's a conflict there so much.
So
But
it's sort of like your club competition where you've got an individual
individual and
event with,
yeah,
with a
and
four
a
ball
better
in
ball.
conjunction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it is. It's kind of the same thing. But my issue with the teams in Live is just the names are so naff.
Ripper.
Like, seriously, guys, who can get on board with the Majestics, the Cleeks, the Stingers, the Fireballs, the Crushers? Like, no,
Mm, mm,
no, no. I mean, Ripper, I don't like the name,
mm.
but at least it's an all Aussie team, so
Yep.
it's got a point,
Yep.
um, and that's kind of good, you know. And I
Mm.
think, what is it the Stingers, or someone that's the South African, or
Yeah.
originally at least was meant to be the South African team, but the
Mm.
others are just, they make no sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, talking about that tribalism of the game, that's going to come from a national team.
Yeah,
So yeah, I certainly think that if you're going to go down the line of team sports, or a team event in golf, that you've got to bring that tribalism into it. Otherwise, to me, it
yeah,
doesn't make a lot of sense.
yeah. The other idea that I heard floated was for it to be brand based. So you have Team
Yeah,
TaylorMade, Team Titleist, Team
yeah,
Callaway,
potentially.
Team Ping,
Mm,
etc.
yeah.
Team Nike. Be interesting. They don't make golf gear anymore. Um, but that, though, I mean, there could be something in that, because people actually do get quite tribal about their golf
Mm,
brands.
yeah, yeah. Mm. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I mean, I like the geographic location probably more, but yeah, certainly I think that a brand could bring an element of tribalism into it as
Yeah,
well.
I would really like to see a left-handed team,
Mm,
all lefties in there. Just, if you're listening, Liv,
mm.
Greg Norman, if you're listening, he's obviously a friend of the show. And I think that'd be a great idea. Get a left-handed team in there.
So do you think maybe you could get a team of like broomies and
Yeah, how good would that be? See, where were we when they were having the brainstorming for how they're going to roll out Live? This is what was
yeah,
necessary. We have a left-handed team. We have a team of broomies.
broomies.
Yeah.
Like
So
we're ideas, man. That's what we are.
yes, yeah, I think it's fantastic. You have a team of walkers, like not as Andy Walkers, but like walking the
Mm.
course. Team of cart riders.
Well, I mean, John Daly would be in the
He'd
carts.
be
I
in the
mean, he
carts.
he
Yeah,
he, he
Tiger would
can't
be
walk
with
the
him
the
right
course.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So no, I think that's excellent. Um, should be more of that.
Mm,
Great
I agree.
brainstorming, Andy Walker.
Mm. Yeah,
All right. Um, I think that's about our list. We
we've
thought it was a
we've we've
short
covered a
one.
lot, and let's face it. I mean, it's a pretty wide variety of topics we've covered
Oh,
tonight. So
it's a broad church. There's nothing
yes,
wrong with that.
no,
But look, there's a lot in there. I think in amongst it all, there was some interesting stuff. Oh, yeah, no, fine. There's some other stuff that we haven't talked about that I did want to, which was just some reflections on Scotty's interview. But I think we can hold that because you need to listen to
Yeah.
it in the car tomorrow.
Correct.
But there are a few things that I do want to talk about that. We'll save that for next episode, which is fine. But I think other than that, Andy Walker, I feel like we're pretty much there for this week. Hour and a quarter.
Again, we've asked a lot of questions. I'm not necessarily sure that we've answered a lot of the questions, certainly.
Wow.
And my challenges at the moment, I've just got to figure out what the hell I'm going to do.
You do.
And yeah, how I'm going to sort of forge my path forward.
You do. It's true. You can do it.
Oh, I'm sure I can.
Do it. Yes. But on that note, if you've got any suggestions for how Andy Walker should forge ahead, please place those suggestions in the Facebook page in the comments.
And if you've seen any YouTube videos that you feel as though I could benefit from, please share, just so I can confuse myself even more.
Oh, I'm going to go on a deep dive right now and share some with you because I think that's great. You know, we're here to help. But ladies and gentlemen, jump on that Facebook page, the Missing Links Golf Show on Facebook, Missing Links Golf on Instagram. Also, if you're so inclined, please feel free to leave a review. Reviews are good. Why are reviews good? Reviews are good because they actually help the algorithm share our podcast with more people. That's what we like about them. So please feel free to do that. The best way you can do it is with 5 stars attached. But of course, that's completely up to you because we live in a democracy at this point in time. Hit that auto download button, all those sorts of things, because that definitely helps. So other than that, Andy Walker, I think it's time to rock out. How do you feel?
Yeah, feeling good. Ready to rock.
All right, let's do it. See you guys.
Have a good week.